With everything we've went through over the last year, the shedding of the snake, and now we're in the year of the horse, even if you don't follow that kind of stuff, last year, I believe many of us went through a lot of growth, a lot of shedding, a lot of clearing, you know, trying to discover who we are, what it is we want in life. And, me included. I mean, we all did it. So, where do we go now? Okay, still you're like, okay, it's been the new year. Okay, finally the horses start, the year of the fire horses started. But I still feel scattered. My nervous system's scattered. I can't, it's all kind of crazy. Well, you gotta bring yourself back. Okay, to build a foundation for the future of this next 9-year cycle. Some say 12. I don't know. Anyway, in doing this, you've got to have a foundation to build anything on. So start with yourself. Okay, self-care. That's going to be the big thing. I know. It's hard to find time for a vacation or do, the big things that we think of that, is what we enjoy doing. But, what's the little things that you can do on a daily basis? You know, tiny things to bring us joy, you know? Do you do crafts? Maybe some little thing. Maybe you want to build a quilt. Okay, that's something I'm actually kind of working on right now myself. I'm self-taught, so I'm no expert, but I'm trying to get there. Well, not maybe be an expert, but I'm trying to make something for me. I figure if I can pay such amount of money for something at, some store, and half the time you can go looking on there and find that it's not perfect either. So I can do that good, right? And it's something I made, I put my time into. So, I'm that's what I'm doing. Oh, one of the things. So, there's different steps to it. One day I took and I got everything together that I needed for it, and then another day I got my sewing machine, up and going so it's ready to go. Maybe you don't have some time to work on it every day, but you could do like a couple times a week, and maybe you've only got 10 minutes. So what little thing can you do to build upon the last thing to finally get yourself on down the road to get it done? Or, quilting's not your thing, that's fine too. What little things that you can do to bring yourself joy in some way or another? Like, oh, I don't know, go outside, take a walk. You could walk around the block, you could walk around the yard, you could go smell the flowers if you're somewhere that, you already got flowers blooming or something, just, something where you can take 5 minutes for you and just kind of tune into you, clear the noise, you know, go overactive mind, you can always name the overactive mind, give it a name, Karen was a popular name back then. Nothing against anybody named Karen, but that's kind of the one I use right now. She starts going off. Well, you done this. See the thing with the overactive mind. It clings to things about the future. It clings to things of the past, but it's never in the present moment. And I get the ego and all that kind of stuff. We do need a part of it. We can't just alienate it because it's our survival mechanism. Because it remembers what's happened, it knows what could happen, whatever. But in this present moment, it's not necessarily useful to us, and it actually can hold us back. So, I tell Karen to, take a seat right now. I don't need to hear it. I don't need a part of it. Go take your vacation. Now, you've obviously been overdoing, so take your vacation because I just want to be in the present moment right now. Okay. So find something, you know, some people say they name it until go take a break, whatever. Some people see it as a dog, you know. So what kind of dog are you? You can do that if that works for you. Sometimes that helps. It doesn't work overnight. Okay, I said it didn't work. Well, no. You kind of got to retrain your brain. So, it's something that works over time, each time a little bit better. And it might take a while. But if it works in the long run, that helps. So, there's an idea. But, close that off for right now. Not saying that you don't ever need it. Just say, I just need peace right now, and you're not in that. And, if you can meditate, great. It's awesome. Not everybody can. I mean, I think we can, all can in a sense, but we all have a different definition of what it is. And so what works for you works for you. If it's going for a walk, if it's listening to music, walking in the grass barefoot, if you got warm enough temperatures, hugging a tree, um, playing with your kids. If you got little ones, go throw the ball, or play some old game that you remember from childhood, hopscotch, or I don't know, hide and seek. Do something, even if it's only 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Color a page with them. Do something with you and them if that's what brings joy. Because sometimes we forget those little things that make a difference for them as well as make a difference for us. Just stop and, just be in the moment. If you can go for a walk, that was something I said, that's great. You can just kind of like tune out. Look at the things around you, keep your mind present, name things as you're on your walk. Like, oh, there's a tree, there's a mailbox, there's a funny looking crack in the sidewalk, oh, look at those flowers, aren't those nice? Keep yourself in the moment, because you have a problem with your mind drifting off, and then that overactive mind starts in. Oh, you should be doing this. Oh, you need to be doing that. Don't let that happen. Fill your mind with other things in this moment, so you're not thinking about all that stuff that you don't need to, because you need a break from it. That overactive, that'll drive you crazy. I'm pretty sure you know that. If you're ADHD or have that overactive thinking, you're like, oh my god, just turn it off. Well, that's kind of a way you can turn it off. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, but work with it little by little. And you can start to quiet it down, and eventually maybe you can just go for that walk and you just breathe, and you don't have to name everything or this or that to keep your mind where it's at. There's different breathing techniques that are great, which, maybe I will start breaking down and doing some of them. If that interests you, comment. Tell me what y'all want to hear, what y'all want to know about, what, life experiences. I'm willing to tell you about my life if you want to know, just tell me what is it that interests you guys, and, we'll talk about it. Maybe even do a couple lives or something, just let me know what's interesting to you or what you need help with. I'm here willing to help. That's kind of what I do. I'm a life coach. I don't know if anybody knows that or not. I don't think I've really put anything out there on that, but I try to help people figure out where they are, who they are, where it is they need to go, because sometimes with all the noise and chaos around us, we're drowned out by what everybody else thinks we are. Everybody else thinks, but that's not always what's here for us. We need to do what makes us happy. Because no matter what we do, we cannot make anybody else happy, because they can only make themselves happy. Okay? So at this point, you need to worry about you and building your foundation of where you want to take this next cycle in your life. So, I think one of the first things is just clearing the mind and just being present with yourself, so you can start to just build the foundation of this new venture, of this next cycle. Okay? So, what I guess the question is, what makes you happy? What makes you feel good for just 5 minutes? That cup of tea, the cup of coffee. Maybe you like to just get up in the morning and go outside and just watch the sunrise. Maybe you're not an early riser. Maybe, I don't know, just unplug. That's I think a biggest distraction is our phones. You know, I grew up in a time there wasn't the phone that we had was hanging on the wall. Okay, if it wasn't a local call, you had to pay by the minute. We don't have the option. We have more options now, and I think it's cluttered our minds, and everything has gotten so faster paced. We need to come back to ourselves. I think we need to go back to the basics, because we have just stretched ourselves to the point of no return here. Okay. Whether it's our personal lives, our family lives, or any of the stuff going on out there, it's just crazy. You got to unplug. If you go listening to the news every night, you're going to be depressed. You're going to be like, chaotic. Just turning on the news brings in chaos of all kinds of craziness. I get it. Be informed, know things, but you can overindulge in things and really make life hard on yourself. So, cut back. How much time do you spend on your phones? I mean, there's supposed to be on some of the phones. I've had it on a past phone. I haven't looked on this one, but they're supposed to be able where you can see on how much time you spend on your phone. So, how much time are you spending that you could be maybe doing something for you that makes you more happy instead of being stressed out over social media or worrying about what the Joneses are doing or who's buying this and oh, wow, I need to get that because this person has it. No, you didn't know it was there. You obviously didn't need it. So, just because you see it doesn't mean you need it. Okay, if you're overspending, then guess what? You're probably going to be overworking because you're going to need more money for the overspending. So, where can you cut things out in your life to make your life easier? Okay, you know, let's make life a lot easier by just, finding out who we truly are, what we truly need, and getting rid of the clutter. Whether it's the phone, whether it's the TV, the video games, I get, some of this stuff's fun, but how much of it is distorting us? Like they say, you shouldn't get on your phone or any social media or any technology type stuff till an hour after you get up at least. And you shouldn't be on any of it an hour before you go to bed because it disrupts your nervous system, it disrupts your sleep, and it disrupts the start of your day. So, if you're trying to build a foundation to your life, maybe you need to start building the foundation for the day and maybe just be present before you even start into that stuff or, give yourself a little bit of time. You know, maybe you can get more sleep if you're not disrupting your sleep at night because you're engaging in too much stuff before going to bed. If you're watching depressing stuff, if you're watching the news, that kind of stuff, how are you going to sleep well? Because your mind's going to be all wrapped up in all this chaos. So give your mind a break to wind down before you go to sleep. It may not happen overnight, just like a lot of other things. Okay, well, I didn't notice it tonight. I did it and it didn't work tonight. Well, you've been you've been tense for how long? You've been doing this habit for how long? So maybe unplugging, give it a week or so, and then see, wow, yeah, actually, I'm sleeping a little bit better. Wow, I'm not having the stress and the tension in my muscles as much. Maybe because I'm going to bed with all this craziness in my mind, maybe my muscles are tense. Maybe that's why I'm not relaxing at night. Maybe that's why I wake up with pain in the morning. You know, maybe that's not you, but maybe that is somebody else. We're all different. We're all wired different. And so you got to find what works for you. So these are just ideas for, maybe it works for you. Maybe something else works for you. Maybe it's just, okay, this is getting the gears turning on what might work for me that I haven't told you. Maybe you can figure it out for yourself. We just got to maybe look at things different, give ourselves a different perspective so we can see things that we need to see. Because a lot of times, we don't see anything going on around us because they're plugged into our phones. Because our phones do everything. Our phones have us connected to this, have us connected to that, have us doing this, have us doing that. We're all nervous because, oh, well, you post something on social media and then people want to diss you, Well, maybe you just shouldn't have posted anything on social media. Maybe you should make it more of a private thing or something. Not everything you need, I can't talk. Not everything you do needs posted on social media. It really doesn't. You're allowed to have privacy. And maybe having more privacy and more, personal type stuff is what you need to be able to figure you out and to have more calmness in your home and your life and to, keep it to calm the nervous system. Everybody's going through anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Well, where were you before the anxiety started? How was your life before the anxiety started? Because, have you had anxiety since the day you were born? I mean, really think back. When were you the happiest? When did you enjoy life the most? You know, if you could take away everybody's opinions and everybody's thoughts on everything that you do, and just take it back to just you and all that stuff gone, what makes you happy? What makes you feel at peace? That's where we need to start at. That's where we need to build the foundation at. And we need to let that noise go. And, we got to, one thing that I think is big is, other people's opinions are none of our business. That's their opinion. That's their reflection. Okay? We reflect. People don't realize that. We see something in somebody, and a lot of times, why does that bother you? What in us is reflecting to make that bother us? If we reflect things, then why does that bother you? So if that's that way for us, then obviously it's that way for others. So they don't like something in us. Maybe it isn't us that needs to change. Maybe they need to look at their own doorstep and figure out where the problem is. But they're projecting that on us when it's their own issue. So if we go by what they're judging us over, then that doesn't make any sense. I mean, seriously, does it? So let's, just focus on us and let the people have their own opinions, because that's their own stuff. It's none of our business. It's their perspective of what they view the information. They view information, they only see parts and pieces. Like they said, there's at least three sides to every story. I can't talk today. So, you've got your side, their side, and then you got the side right down the middle of somebody else that's overseeing it. And I've actually seen things happen to where there's more than three sides to the story if there's more than, three people involved. Somebody that's not even in the situation can see things totally different. Like your friend's going to judge something different. There can be two things going on between two people, and you have a friend standing by, and they're going to see it their way. But what if a complete stranger comes up? How are they going to view it? Everybody has a different perspective. That doesn't mean yours is wrong. It doesn't mean yours is right. You have your own emotion and your own feeling for it, just like they do too. And you have that right just as well as they have their right. Doesn't mean everybody's right. Doesn't mean everybody's wrong. In a sense, you're right, and in a sense, they're right. And probably in a sense, you're wrong, and in a sense, they're wrong. But do we really need to be pointing fingers? I mean, seriously? Is it really something so important you need to point fingers over? Not everybody's going to believe the same way. We are all different for a reason. Authenticity. Let's be authentic. Let's be our authentic selves. Isn't that what this is about? So, foundation. Let's build the foundation for this next season of our life. Okay? I guess enough rambling today. But, just think about some things, and if you guys got any ideas, drop it down below. If you have any questions or, comments, feel free. And I'll leave yeah. I've got some things in the coming here in the near future. So say I'll drop a link in the thing, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. But if you're interested in some coaching or anything like that, put a comment down, and yeah, I believe I do have my email listed on my page, so my description. So if you want to get a hold of me for anything like that, that's fine. I don't have everything completely set up yet for what I'm wanting to do. Most of my stuff I've done on like a more of a personal basis, but I'm putting myself out there a little further. I just don't have the webpage and everything set up yet. So it's in the making. So just, anybody interested, let me know. Just not quite up and running on that yet, but we're good. And, like I said, questions, comments, drop them down in the chat, and we'll see what we can do, what we come up with. All right, see you guys later. Bye.